Okay, I kind of zoned out there for a minute.
Wake up.
Like, oh, you got to wake up. Turn the video off. Hello, here we are at Miles of Smiles events at the Crystal Clearpoint Studios. And our threesome is a twosome today, as you can see. Matthew Pierce, Dr. Matthew Pierce, can't be with us today. He's got some personal things that are much more important than us. Can you imagine anything more important than us?
What can be
No,
more important?
we miss him. All right, I need to tell you guys something before you watch any further because I don't know how to put a banner across here. I don't even know if you can with Zoom because that's what we're using. We're talking about suicide today. And so that can be triggering, it can be upsetting, it can be a lot of things for people. So we want you to know that that's what we're going to be talking about today. So if you don't want to watch it or feel like it would be too hard for you to watch it, turn it off now. Click, say goodbye. We love you. We'll see you next week. All right. Is that enough said?
Yeah, I think so. You know, everybody's going to start from the beginning, so they should be able to understand that.
I never start my videos from the beginning.
Well, you're
I
weird.
well, no, here's the thing. Okay, let's start in the rabbit hole today and we'll dig our way out. Okay, we're trying to stay out of the rabbit holes. But anyway, when I'm watching videos, I'm usually trying to garner information. I'm not watching for entertainment purposes. So I
Hmm.
know if it's 3 minute video, the first minute's a wash. So I skip over to two. So I usually skip the first third of a video because I know they're going to be yang yang yang, wanting you to sign up for this and subscribe to this and blah 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 blah.
It's like this one.
No, we don't have. You know what? We have never said subscribe to us, click that button, nothing. We just get
No,
right
we
in.
haven't.
You either watch it because you want to or you don't. I mean, it is what it is. But this is Suicide Awareness Month, and this is a really important issue for me. And it's a real important issue for a lot of people. So can I just relay some information real quick? Okay. So first of all, if you are having trouble, there is a 988 number that you can call from any phone to get suicide support, help, someone to listen, someone that will give you resources, whatever you might be needing. So always keep that number handy, 988. And a lot of people, I don't know, maybe they've never had to deal with the issue, either personally for themselves or with a loved one. But I was doing some research and it is in the top 15 leading causes of death in this country, suicide is. With the age group from the age of 10, yes, I said 10 to 14, it is the second leading cause of death in this country.
Wow.
In the age group of 25 to 34, it's the third leading cause of death. And in the year 2021, I couldn't find anything that was more recent that really made sense. This was the most recent number. So in 2021, and I also am taking in consideration that's the pinnacle of COVID, right? 21 was.
Hmm.
But we had twice as many suicides that year as we did homicides. Yeah,
Nationwide.
yeah, nationwide,
Wow. Okay.
nationwide. So it is a huge issue. And another reason why there's several reasons why this is on the top of my mind. It's National Awareness Month for suicide. I had a brother who committed suicide, and I had a feeling that he was going to and tried to talk to him about it, and he did anyway. My first exposure to suicide was when I was 19 years old, and my really good friend committed suicide in her car. She shot herself. She was one of the sweetest people I'd ever met. She was kind, she was loving, she was beautiful. So the concept of her having that thought even was shocking. Um, I've dealt with it in my family with several of my family members. Um, and going through the ancestry records, we have a lot of accidental gunshot deaths in the past generations. And
Okay.
I'm like, you know what? I know the people in my family, and they're all pretty good shots. I just find that hard to believe that we had so many accidental gunshot wounds, you know?
Yeah.
So read between the lines because why? Because stigma, stigma. And then
Exactly.
finally, my family took part, gosh, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, in a documentary about teen suicide called A Reason to Live. And has won some Lone Star Emmy Awards and other awards. It was produced by Media Projects, and it's now used as in churches and colleges as a curriculum to help
Didn't you
people.
get an email about that recently?
Yes, and if it is very well done. Very, very well done. And if you want it, and used to you couldn't see it for free very many places. It's going to be free on PBS this month. First
PBS.
time will be next Monday. I think it's at 9 o'clock on PBS. So I highly recommend you watch it. But they even have a curriculum guideline for questions and conversation on their website with the description of the documentary. So you can go to mediaprojects.org and read about, certain things and just there's a lot of great questions in there to have a dialogue with your family and your friends. And I think you might be surprised by some of the conversation that comes out of that.
Well, I know that I don't know if it was during my classroom days or whether I heard this from a counselor or what, but what what they told me was if you feel like that's what you want to do is end your life, just give yourself 24 hours to think about it and see what your attitude is in 24 hours. And
Hmm.
every time I get down and get into that, why am I here? Why do I stay? I say, okay, I got to wait 24 hours and see how I feel about it tomorrow. And it's always different. You just immediately go, oh, well, no, that's not what I wanted to do. But at the moment, you think that I would be better, everybody else would be better. Why I hang around, I'm always depressed. So there is
Depression
an
lies to you. Depression just it lies to you. It really
it
does.
does.
You know,
It does.
mental illness, I mean, depression is a mental illness, and that's why it is because your brain is not functioning at its optimum potential.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, not only does the brain, control our organs and our body, it controls our emotions.
Hmm.
And ironically, most people do not make their decisions out of logic. They make them out of emotions.
Hmm.
And so there is the full circle of the problem. Um, a lot of people don't know this, but I used to be the education director for the National Alliance of Mental Illness of Texas for about 5 or 6 years. I forget. I have some timeline issues with my memory. And we used to teach several programs, but one of the programs that we taught was Visions for Tomorrow, and we taught it on several levels. One, we taught it to parents on how to deal with mental health issues with their children. And then we had a professional service program that we would go and teach people in schools and juvenile centers. And we taught at the Dallas Juvenile Center for years, just like almost every quarter, teaching their workers, because it was surprising that to me, that people could work with children and didn't know what mental health looked like in children.
Well,
And they didn't. And so consequently out of that, we also taught them how to communicate with them on their level and to have empathy, not
mm,
sympathy, but empathy. And the stories. I mean, I think I'm probably glad that I have some memory problems
mhm.
because I think if I remembered all the stories that I heard over those years, I just don't think I'd get out of bed. I really don't. And but one of the things I shared personally in these classes is I told my kids, I gave you birth, I gave you life. If you want to die, you have the right to die, but you have to do it with dignity and you have to do it with responsibility. And what that looks like is that you owe me, out of respect as your mother, to let me know that you plan to do this and give me a chance to say goodbye the way I need to say goodbye. Because otherwise, what you do is cruel. And having lost an uncle through suicide, even though they might have not have known him well, they understand, they understood that concept of what it has done to the family. People thought I was insane for telling my kids that.
Why?
Insane. But it worked because I made my children sign a contract that agreed to that, and we renewed it every year. And one day my son called me it was late at night, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I woke up immediately and I'm like, that's the call. I just knew it before I even answered the phone. And he says, I'm calling to say goodbye. And I said, no, you're not, because you have to do that in person. Did I give birth to you long distance? No. And I immediately went into legal jargon attorney mode, being a private investigator as
You
well.
did?
I did,
You did?
arguing the components of the contract. So he agreed to wait for us, my husband and I, his dad and I, to go pick him up so we could say goodbye properly. Okay. So we went and picked him up and then we immediately took him to the hospital.
Sabotage
Yeah. Probably the only time I ever lied to my child.
for good reason.
But it bought time and that supports what you were saying.
Hmm.
You give it time because that's a permanent decision and it's not something you want to jump into.
Exactly. Well, I, I'm always surprised, I guess, after the fact that, you have so many things going on in your life that's good for you. Why all of a sudden do you think that you're useless or worthless? Where does that it and that has to do with the depression. That's where your brain goes.
Well, and sometimes from what I hear from people, because I hear a lot of this with the type of coaching that I do, is that it's not that they feel worthless; they're just they hurt. They have a pain they cannot describe, and I've heard people describe having suicide thoughts in two separate types of scenarios. Basically, one, they hurt so bad they want the pain to stop.
Hmm.
Then the one that was surprising to me the first time I heard about it, but I heard about it more and more through the years, is that they felt so good, but they remembered how bad they felt. They wanted to die on an up note and never feel bad again.
Okay.
And I thought, wow, that's really twisted up. I mean, and what is this person going through that puts them in that position?
A lot of times my state of mind was I can't I don't make anybody happy, not even myself. When am I going to have happiness? Well, other people don't make your happiness, you make your own happiness. But when you're in that down spot, you're not thinking clearly.
Exactly.
And that's
Exactly.
why I always tell myself, yeah, I've had this thought more than once. And I certainly had it for 4 months between November and April this year.
Do you want to share our little episode story that we had one day?
I will. Uh,
Did you tell that story? It's your story.
so Deborah is very invested in, you know, being there for her friends. So um, I had an episode earlier that year that I told her that I was going to end my life, and she had done the same thing with me. You got to tell me in person, blah blah blah. And I said I don't have to tell you crap. But anyway, she helped me through that point, uh, thinking about leaving permanently. So in May this year, I don't know. I guess I turned my phone off. I don't know what. And she was calling me and I didn't answer. And I had just posted what was it? It was a poem about when I'm dead, don't do this or don't. Here's
Yeah, it was about death. I mean, it was dark and gloomy and
Mhm.
hooey and
Yeah. yeah, when I die, don't cry for me because now I'm, something to that effect. And I don't know why I posted it. I was not in that position to, I don't know. It just spoke to me that day and I posted it. So she couldn't get a hold of me. And she didn't have Robert's number. And she couldn't get a hold of me. And she called me and she called me. And finally she showed up at my front door and said, "Where is your mother?" I was like, wow, what I do? And she came storming in the living room and said, "Where have you been? And why did you post so and so? And now I can't get a hold of you." And I was like, whoa.
And then I just
But
collapsed on the couch and boo-hooed because I was so
because
mad
that's
and
what
so
you
relieved.
do. I mean, she had been through it with me recently. And then for me to post something that was not normal to post, and then she couldn't get a hold of me. I, it was all very eye-opening then when she got here and she goes, "Don't you think that I won't show up to make you follow your contract?"
Absolutely. I would have
And
kicked the
and
door
I
and
think that
probably hadn't opened it.
and I think that probably that's an excellent way to help out your children or your friends that go to that place often. You
Well,
tell
one of the things I'm sorry. Um, One of the things in the classes, the parent classes that we taught at NAMI that came up a lot is this like, well, my child's always threatening suicide, and I think they're just doing it for attention. And so my response to that is, so what? If they want attention, give it to them. Because one of two things is going to happen. If they're threatening suicide and you take them to the hospital and they're not suicide, the ordeal is so uncomfortable and so you know, negative because you're in a place where you can't leave. They usually keep you for, 3 days observations.
yeah.
They're not ever going to threaten suicide again if that's not really what they're thinking. Okay.
Mhm.
The other side of the coin is that they threaten it and they are thinking it, they're going to get the help that they need. So
Right.
why would you hesitate to take them to the hospital for any reason whatsoever? And, I said this, kind of out of the side of my face, but jokingly, but I meant it. If nothing else, you're going to get a 3-day reprieve, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
they'll
take it.
be spending 3 days with someone else that is educated to see them through it.
Exactly. But, I just don't mess around with that stuff. And I've had a lot of people that were affiliated with NAMI. I had a lot of friends that would, ask me to, that's how I got into coaching actually, is working with the kids and talking to them because, I'm not their parent. So they could say things to me that they can't say to their parents.
Mhm.
And, the one thing I instilled or tried to instill in these children is that you are in charge of your life. I know you're a child and I know you can't vote and I know you legally can't drink, but I can smell it on your breath, that type of stuff.
Mhm.
But you are in charge of your life. And that means you're in charge of how you live and how you die. Okay. And do you really want to leave this world worse because you weren't responsible? And they
Yeah.
all made the right decision. They all made a better decision.
And I experienced, when you asked me, did anybody ever commit suicide in your family or immediate friends? I forgot about the incident where Gussie took, I don't know how many bottles of pills and intended to leave, lose her life. She did it I mean, her note said, "I have to stop the pain. I can't live with this pain anymore." And I don't know if it was physical pain, mental pain, or what it was. But I happened to go over there and she was kind of semi-conscious when I got there. I even slapped her.
Oh my God.
and and I called 911 and they pumped her stomach and she was mad at me for years. But I said, no, but she gets to live her life.
Yeah.
And she got to meet a really great man that made her life complete. And
Well,
so,
I think it was just misguided emotion, and it was easier to put it on you than on herself. You
mhm,
know, I may be wrong, but that's what I would think, you know. So, um, I don't know, suicide is really on the rise as well because of the LGBTQ, and I don't know all the letters, I apologize, but you know what I'm talking about.
mhm,
The teen community because of and the bullying that's going on.
mhm,
And they are more prone to suicide in the teen years than any other group. So that does tell you that it is related, not necessarily to a mental illness such as depression, but so the question is that does being bullied lead to depression, or are people that are depressed more prone to being bullied? But the bullying and being mistreated and not being accepted, and that leads to a higher risk of suicide with
mhm.
the LGBTQ group. That's a lot to say.
Yeah,
LGBTQ, LGBTQ.
yeah.
We need an easier, we need easier words or letters.
Well, I think bullying in general does not help. I was a very quiet person. I know it's hard to believe, but when I was growing up and when I was at school, I was quiet. And I think that led to being bullied because I never said anything.
Well,
But the bullying did depress me.
nobody wants to be picked at. You know,
No.
and that was one of the things that I had to accept about myself is that my witty sarcasm felt like bullying to people at times, and I had to start reading the room better. Yeah,
Hmm.
or not, depending on how I felt about the person in the room with me. But, you know, um, but a lot of people say, well, how do we know? How do we know? Well, first ask. It is amazing to me how reticent people are to ask family and friends, are you okay? Are you sad? Are you wanting to hurt yourself? Are you thinking about dying? And with clients that I have worked with in the past, that's one of my first questions. Have you ever, or do you have now a plan on how to kill yourself?
Right. Do
And
you
I've
have a plan?
never had anyone refuse to answer that question. And I feel like they've all answered it honestly.
Yeah.
So it's my thought that many of these people want to talk and they want
Hmm.
to reach out, but they don't have anyone they feel safe enough to do it with, or feel like they can, or they don't feel like they're being justified or heard.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Right. Because you get into that thinking that you're not enough, or you know, you're so unhappy. Why do you want to continue to be this way? I mean, there's lots of things you tell yourself
Well,
during the process.
and think about what we've done over the years with the generations. With our generation, if we were hurt, whether it's physical or whatever, well, get over it. Put your big girl panties on, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and then we had future generations that came through with the goth. And so everything was goth. Well, that's just a stage they're going through. Well, is it?
Mhm.
Is it a stage? Or is it a reflection of their internal dialogue? And how do you find out? You ask you
Right.
know you watch their behaviors, that type of thing. So the bottom line is that the root, it seems like, to all of our problems, especially on one-on-one relationships, is we need to communicate better and more openly and more honestly.
Yeah, I that's one thing I've tried to concentrate on is not just say I'm unhappy, to say why, or you know, so besides just no, I'm not I'm not happy.
Well, my husband told me something the other day. Scott says, he goes, you seem like you're really unhappy lately. I'm like, I'm not. I like me. I'm real happy in my head. I'm just really disappointed what's what all around me, you know? So you can be not happy with circumstances and still be a happy person or content. You
Right.
may not be joyful, but you can be content. And internally, I'm really content. But I look at all the crap going on around me with politics and everything, and I'm very disappointed. So, but I'm on the other side of my life. How do teenagers have the maturity and the wisdom to discern what's external discord versus internal discord?
I don't think they do.
You know,
I think some adults don't, because I
um,
know that we were talking about happiness one day and how you have to make yourself happy. And I said, I am happy. I'm just discontented,
yeah,
not content with the way things are, but I am happy.
I just social media has been a double-edged sword in regards to that because and the internet because I mean like before we had got on Zoom today, I'm researching things, I know it, but I don't have the stats and stuff like that. And I'm like, all this information is out there. But so I'm going to tell a tale on my family. Most of my family members will call me and go, "What's so and so and so?" And I'm like, "You got the Google? Get on the Google and do some Most people do not know how to accurately research either.
No,
They don't, like especially news and stuff. They'll read a news story and go, "Oh my God, they did this." Well, did you read where it was from?
yeah.
A reliable source, that type of thing. Um, but so let me break this down for you guys. Okay, so how do you know if someone might be leaning towards suicide? First thing, ask and be serious and be open and don't be, you know, judgmental and condemning. So, or look at their research on the internet, their history. Are they researching ways to make a plan? Have they, are they writing about making a plan? I'm not suggesting you go snoop, but if you might see something laying around the house or whatever, but just ask them. If you see them start to withdraw from their friends, if they start giving things away, that's what my brother did. He did a lot of this all in one day. Um, if people start making, if they're adults, if they start making a will, and they're 23 years old and taking out life insurance policies or something, there's something going on there. If you see people taking dangerous risks all of a sudden, driving fast, drinking too much, drugging, okay, this this devil may care attitude really may be self-inflicted wounds.
Hmm.
Pay attention to that. Extreme mood swings, up and down, up and down, up and down. Goes back to you know, people sometimes commit suicide when they're really down, but sometimes they do it when they're really up because they don't want to be down again. So you can't say because someone acts happy that they're in a safe place yet. Using drugs and alcohol more often with teens and young adults. Are they self-inflicting injuries and are they doing it to extremes, especially? Because that's not necessarily a sign of suicide, but it could be a stepping stone. It could be, you know, a door into that. So those type of things are things that you can look for.
Well, I know one of the things that Gussie kept telling me was this happened, that happened, and it's just not worth hanging around for. Well, it didn't occur to me that's what she meant. She meant totally not hanging around on this earth.
Yeah, if that's not on your radar as an option, you think, well, she's going to move to California. What the hell?
Yeah.
She's looking for a change.
Hmm.
You got to really pay attention to the
Hmm.
words in the personality that you're dealing with.
So I
Um,
should have been asking, what is it you don't want to hang around for, and where are you not going to hang around?
yeah.
What
If
is
you're
it
not
you
going to
mean
hang
by
around, where will you be?
that? Uh-huh.
If you're going to hang
Exactly.
around here, where will you be?
Hmm.
What does that look like?
Yeah.
You know? So, um, while I was looking at websites today, I stumbled on assisted suicide. I hadn't thought
Hmm.
about that much, because I just assumed it wasn't legal in this country. So why?
It is.
But it is legal. Did you know that?
Just not in Texas.
No, but I was shocked in how many states it is legal. Um, it's legal in California, Colorado, Hawaii, Maine, Montana, New Jersey, New Mexico, Oregon, Vermont, and both Washingtons, Washington State in Washington, D.C.
Mm,
Now, I could make a joke about Washington, D.C., but I won't because this is a serious subject. But I could. Uh,
mhm.
but I was a little shocked. And I had a real knee-jerk reaction to that going, oh, that's wrong. That's wrong, 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 wrong. What the hell? So then I did a little more digging. There is criteria for this. And so it made it seem a little more palatable. First of all, it has to meet three criteria, and this seems to be true in all the states. I wasn't able to research it for sure, but it's what it looked like. You have to be diagnosed with a terminal illness with less than 6 months to live, and it has to be by two doctors. So that means they're going to die in 6 months or less anyway. They have to be competent and have intact judgment, and it has to be voluntary. Well, that's a good one. So somebody can't go sign your rights over and say, yeah, we need assisted suicide. And they gave me power of attorney. That the person has to make the agreement themselves. My only question is, if you have competence and you have intact judgment and you know that you don't have much longer to live, I know the response is immediate because you're in pain, but they have ways of treating pain. So why would you want to go ahead and do assisted suicide? I wish we had call-ins on this show now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I always look at it from the perspective of my mother dying. She had breast cancer, and she had stage 4 or 5 or whatever the heck it is that all your organs are involved. And she um, she more or less drowned because her lungs kept filling with fluid. And I think she was in a lot of pain, but when I would see her, she would be kind of high from taking different kinds of things. So I think that probably my response to her dying was, "You do you want to get up and visit with the family?" No, I'm going to be sleeping now because mom's not in pain anymore, and I don't have to worry about her suffering.
So basically, what I heard is that she really didn't have any quality of life left
No,
because
no.
the only way to treat her pain was to keep her doped up, and she wasn't
Yes.
aware, she wasn't responsive, she wasn't able to. So, okay, I can see that. That makes
And they
sense.
had to continually drain fluid out of her lungs to keep her from drowning in her own fluids. So it was not, these were just palliative things that they were doing for her because it was extending her life beyond what I felt like should have taken place.
Yeah, yeah. Because I know a lot of people say, like, well, if I get Alzheimer's or dementia, I want someone to put me out of my misery. Well, at that point, you're not able to make that
No,
decision based upon these guidelines. And I mean, that's a weird state of mind to think about. Does the person with Alzheimer's and dementia know that they're disconnected? Do they
uh,
know that they don't know?
I don't think they have enough clarity, but occasionally you'll have someone that has a moment of clarity and knows they're a burden and they want out.
Hmm.
I would
You know,
say
so
that's not a usual occurrence, but I have seen it happen.
well, suicide has such a stigma to it, and it is so terrifying to people. But one of the things I dealt with for years is that people would talk to me about my brother's passing, and they would tell me they were so sorry, and I had one lady go, "I'm so sorry." Well, thank you. I really love my brother. And she goes, "Oh, no, I'm not talking about that. I'm sorry because he's in hell." And
You burden?
so there's that tied to the stigma as well, that that it's a sin against God and that you're not going to get in heaven. I don't know that people really believe that anymore, or
Well, for
I
crying
mean,
out loud, haven't we been told all our life all we have to do is ask for forgiveness?
yeah. I I don't know. This whole the closer I feel to God, the more I feel like I don't know anything sometimes, because
Yeah.
I look at what goes on around me, which is why I'm disappointed all the time. And I'm just like, what are people thinking? And why are they thinking that? And why do they feel the need to share that with everybody else? Especially when they're so angry. But I don't know. Suicide's been a big part of my life, a big, big part of my life. I've had more than a few friends commit suicide when I was younger, and not so much now, but when I was younger. My brother, my children having their issues with it, but not committing, completing the act, praise God, that type of thing.
Mhm.
Um, but something positive always comes out of things if you allow it. That's how I got into handwriting therapy, was because of the
Ah,
suicide issue. And
somebody
so
is knocking on my door. Can I
go
call?
knock on that door. Go answer it.
I'm sorry.
Go answer it. Here I am all alone. I'm so alone. Well, you know what? I'm just going to tell you a little story to kind of close this off. Um, my brother had a beautiful funeral. He died in his mid 20s, and he was greatly, greatly loved, greatly, greatly loved. And the chapel was full. I was frankly surprised at how many people were there from high school, from his work, from his church, that type of thing. And oh, you're back.
Well, maintenance is on their toes, and my air conditioner's having a problem that I didn't know about, so he's here to fix it.
Well, I was going to tell a story about my brother's funeral, and I was going to close because it's kind of
Okay.
a fun note. I mean, not a fun note, but it's funny.
Uh-huh.
Um, when my brother died, he was in his mid 20s, and the chapel was just packed. It was at the old Williams Funeral Home here in Garland, and it was just packed. People from church, his work, from high school, and um, I don't know how this happened, but I wound up doing his eulogy. I think my mother insisted I do the eulogy because she didn't feel like anybody really knew him as well as I did. And I agonized over what to say and how to say it. And I have it saved somewhere. Um, and I remember doing the eulogy and coming back to my seat, and we finished the service. And then the family and I and some of my close friends, we all went to the back room from there, and I just lost my crap. I mean, I'm wailing like a banshee on Quaaludes. I mean, just losing it. And I had several friends there. One was I was still in the bail bond business, and one was another lady bail bondsman that we were close, and another one was a paralegal that I'd gone to paralegal school with, and we'd been friends for years. And another one was a friend of mine who was a hairdresser, and she was one of the first women in Texas to lobby for transgender rights. So we had a broad spectrum of female estrogen going on. Okay.
Yeah.
And with her being a hairdresser, she looked over me and she goes, "Honey, I can't even imagine what you're feeling inside, but your hair just looks great." That line from
Yeah.
Steel Magnolias.
Yeah.
And we all just died laughing, just started laughing. And laughter really does help heal.
It
It really,
does.
really does. So when I get really down and out about these type of things, I just focus on the fun stories. I focus
Yeah.
on the fun. And that's what I do in my coaching too. When I have clients in there and they're really down, I'm like, you can't think of one happy moment, not
Yeah. You got to
one.
think of one.
And then I make them write it out. And then I make them read it to me. And then I make
Right.
them tell me why they liked it so much.
That's how I knew that I was healing from losing my parents. They died within 2.5 years of each other. That you all of a sudden are telling those funny stories that happened to
Yep.
you, to your parents, and you think, I'm just about around but you never lose that sorrow. It's always with you, but becomes less. The
Yep.
scar is always there.
Yeah, my brother was a big fan of Batman, and so now I'm wearing Batman shirts.
Yeah.
Old woman wearing Batman shirts, but I do. So,
Well, I have a comparison to my mother's, what I thought would have been a, a good reason for assisted suicide, and compare that to the way my father died. He had congestive heart failure and he just dropped dead one day.
oh my
He had
gosh,
his quality of life was great, and he was doing what he wanted to do up until the last second.
I hope I die having sex.
Okay, good.
Even if it's just by myself. We had to laugh. We had to
Yeah,
laugh.
yeah.
Okay, so all you people that judge me with my weird, inappropriate comments, it's how I cope. Got it? So,
That is how I cope.
yep. All right, darling, tell them how to find you.
Uh, Luann at Ancient Herbal Apothecary, or you can look at the website, ancientherbalapothecary.com.
Cool. And I love her products. I need some more lip gloss.
Okay.
Before I forget. All right, this is sponsored by Miles of Smiles Events, which seems kind of weird when you think about the subject that we're talking about today. But we like addressing people from all angles. And also, I'm a coach, as I've mentioned several times, DeborahCollingRose.com, and I'm a private investigator, ISGU.com. So we'll see you next week, and we're talking again. Watch out. Who knows what we'll be talking about next?
Bye
See
now.
y'all. It won't let me close. There we go.